And so there's an interesting question that comes up here. Is there a general principle that can help us identify other interventions that are good for brain function? And the answer to that question is yes. The answer is that there's a general principle, which is that interventions that are good for the heart are also found to be good for the brain as well. And I'll give you a few examples. One example is certain kinds of alcoholic beverage. So it turns out that alcohol is not damaging to the brain in moderate amounts. So for instance, there's an old joke that alcohol kills brain cells. That turns out not to be true. And there's a safe amount of alcohol, and that safe amount of alcohol is up to about 2 alcoholic drinks a day in men, about 1 drink a day in women. Some studies say that it might be somewhat higher. So not only is it true that alcohol does not kill brain cells, but it turns out that certain forms of alcoholic beverage can in fact be neuroprotective. And that is in particular red wine. So not liquor, not white wine, not beer. Specifically, the beverage that has some neuroprotective effect is red wine. Now, it turns out that study was done, one influential study was done at the University of Bordeaux in France, but it turns out that result has been replicated by other studies done in non-wine producing regions. Now, how is it that red wine protects the brain? Well, it turns out that the mechanism is not fully understood. There's one compound that's been identified in red wine in grape skins called resveratrol, and resveratrol has been shown to have some protective benefit. But it's probably not the case that resveratrol is the only thing in red wine that helps, because the equivalent amount of, if you give it to rats, you can get a certain amount of benefit in the rats. But the amount of resveratrol that the rats have to consume is equivalent to about 3,000 bottles of wine per day. Okay, so that is clearly more than the typical serving and more than the 2 drinks a day that I mentioned before, a lot more. And what that suggests is that there must be other compounds in red wine that confer some kind of neuroprotective benefit. And there is evidence that, that some of these benefits can come from drinking not just wine, but also grape juice. So that's not as much fun, but it shows that there's something in red wine, probably in grape skins, that confers some kind of benefit for brain function.